All right. Another episode of Adding Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
I'm Coach Nrgy.
I'm Aphrodite.
And I'm Emmanuel.
All right. So what we're going to talk about today, the topic is compromise. So why is compromise so difficult for some in life and in relationships? For some, when you say the word compromise, that kind of means that you're going to be giving up something to gain something for most times. And when you look at it from, an individual standpoint, sometimes when you're used to, living a particular lifestyle, that word compromise, it hurts. It's like it cuts you. Well, every day you got to hear, you got to compromise. You cut me with that one, because I don't want to compromise, right? Like, I want what I want, right? Like that's the thing. When you hear that, and there's a lot of people that like that, right? Like sometimes that compromise word, woo, it gets you. So when it comes to like that compromise, why do you think it's so difficult for some to hear, like either hear that word or to want to compromise? Like, why do you guys think that?
So, go ahead.
You go ahead, Aphrodite. You go ahead, Nrgy.
No, I went first last time. Go.
I was just saying, I think people are stubborn and or selfish, because compromise requires you to relinquish those feelings in most cases. So I think a lot of people aren't willing to. The stubbornness and or selfishness just restricts them from being able to truly compromise with the situation or the belief or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Okay. Nrgy, what were you gonna say?
Some people don't know how to compromise in a healthy way, because some people are so used to or may consider compromising as sacrificing, which are two totally different things. And so there are some people who just don't know how to compromise, and to where compromise is done in a healthy manner.
Okay. So when people look at it as, compromising their lifestyle, why do you think that that's difficult for some people to do? Especially when you're used to, or you may be used to living a certain way, living a certain type of lifestyle. Why do you think that's hard for some people to do?
Because they used to live in a certain type of way.
Yeah,
and it's hard to come off of that. When a person is used to living certain ways, you know what I'm saying? And especially if they feel like it's a downgrade from what they used to live in, that's really hard for a person.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they didn't make that internal switch from no longer being single to now I have to consider someone else.
Okay. So that's what's so interesting about having to compromise either with someone or compromise your lifestyle. That's what's interesting about that, because those are two different types of compromise.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about compromising your lifestyle and compromising with someone else, you look at it like, is it easy to compromise your lifestyle, or is it easy to compromise with somebody else? Like, is it an easier part, or both of them are just difficult?
I think both of them are difficult. I do agree about making a switch. And even with making a switch does not mean they don't struggle with compromising. You can make it switch, but it still could be a struggle for them, only because they might not be used to certain life. Like, I'm not saying the partner don't have a great lifestyle, but they lifestyle and your lifestyle, and bringing them together, like bringing two single people together that's used to living certain lifestyles is, it can be challenging. Not saying that they haven't made a switch, not saying that they don't love each other. It's just going to be a challenge because, when you bring two people together from two different worlds or doing two different things and stuff like that. And so, you do have to learn how to compromise, because that's the only way it's going to work when you become together as one, as in that household. But I can see it being a struggle. Not saying that they're not gonna do it, but I can see it being a struggle.
Yeah. So it's hard to do it either way, like compromise, like either with yourself or with somebody else.
Yeah, because even with compromising as a single person and and stuff, it could be like, dang, I really gotta like you think, because you so used to it. Even as a single person, like you used to it. And you be like, dang, I really gotta let this go. But you also gotta think about the bigger picture, either as a single person. Like, it's not really letting it go. I'm sure it's for the better. You know, especially when you're trying to achieve a goal, whatever that goal is, you know, sometimes it takes you to compromise in what somebody else might consider a downgrade in order for you to move forward.
Yeah.
It takes you to let some things go.
Yeah. I think that I'm gonna put that in the easier said than done category. That's what I'm gonna do. If I put that right there, that thought in the easier said than done, because a lot of times people, instead of compromising, this is what I found. A lot of times, especially depending on, the point in your life is a person's in, instead of compromising, you try to live that lifestyle anyway. So that means that, subsequently people go into debt or, do things that are a little bit more questionable because they don't want to compromise that lifestyle. So with that,
it hinders them. It hinders them in the end, in the most vulnerable ways, when you like trying to live a lifestyle that you really cannot be living right now due to whatever your situation is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So but again, it's so interesting that we're on this particular topic, because it's like, yes, it's hard to compromise. Yes, certain individuals may not want to compromise because they're used to living a particular lifestyle. But I think it's deeper than that. Like, you could say you don't want to live a particular lifestyle and stuff like that, but that's surface level to me. I think that's surface level. Of course nobody wants to change their lifestyle if they've been living a particular lifestyle, but what's the real reason why you don't want to change this lifestyle, right? Like there gotta be a real reason behind certain things like that. Like, it could be like, a status thing. It could be like a pride thing. It could be like, it can be other personal reasons why a person doesn't want to compromise or something like that. But I always think it's deeper than just the initial person does not want to change or does not want to compromise. And if you look at compromise in itself and from a relationship standpoint, it's deeper than that too. It's the same way. Like, people don't want to compromise because of a deeper reason than just a person saying, I can't compromise or I don't know how to compromise. Because everybody knows how to compromise. It's just that you got to want to do it or not. Yeah. Like, everybody generally knows how to compromise. It's just that if you are a strong-willed person, or if you're a stubborn person, or if you're a person that does not work well with others, it's kind of hard to find compromise, because all you're going to find is negotiation. Like, that's all you're going to find. Like, you're not going to find compromise. You're going to be negotiating with every other person that you're in the relationship with. That's all you're going to be doing. And that's what most couples do, especially from a relationship standpoint. You're not compromising with that person. You negotiate. You try to win. What it is. Like,
you trying to win. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The winner and the loser.
Hey, nobody like to lose, man. Like, a loser hurt. Okay. Especially depending on what it is. Nobody likes to give when it comes to like compromise and stuff like that. And that's why finding compromise, especially this topic, is so difficult for people, because it starts with you as an individual in order to figure out compromise with somebody else. Like it's almost like you doing some type of self-analysis and figuring out the big picture instead of the 3 foot that's in front of you. Like the 3 foot that you see, this narrow vision that you have, like you have to see wider than that 3 foot. Because if you don't, I mean, you just gonna be fighting with somebody else the whole entire time, or fighting with yourself. That's it. Hey, I'm telling you, this compromise, hey, it's a good subject. Hey, I know. Okay, I see all of y'all looking at me. I know it's good. Okay, I know it's good. So, learning how to compromise well, especially within, like, if you're, learning compromising lifestyles or learning to compromise in relationships, is learning to compromise well beneficial for your life in the relationship? Do you think that this is a beneficial thing to know how to compromise with yourself or someone else?
Yep.
It's very beneficial.
Okay.
You can take those skills and go really far.
Okay. So what now?
I think it depends when it comes to your personal life. Because sometimes people compromise where they shouldn't. Just depending on how you look at that.
I think you have to have discernment.
Definitely need to have discernment across the board. definitely have discernment. But sometimes I think people compromise with themselves a lot more than they should. And it could be because the journey got hard, or they insecurities. It could be a mixture of things, but in a relationship, I think it's different. But when you compromise with yourself, it's almost like defeat, depending on the nature of the situation, right? Because unless we're assuming that your initial standard wasn't good enough, right? But if you have a standard for yourself, you say, all right, I'm gonna work out an hour every day. And then next thing you know, you compromise that standard and you're doing 30 minutes, and then you're doing 20 minutes, and then you're taking the day off, and then now you're not working out at all. I think compromise in that sense could be damaging. Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it. And in the relationship, I think compromise, you definitely learn to compromise, very important. No one is winning fully if you're compromising in a relationship. There's both parties are losing something. So if you are truly in it for the relationship, you should be okay with knowing that neither of us really got exactly what we wanted, but because of the commitment to our relationship, I'm okay with that, knowing that we were happy with the end goal, and that we both gave in a little something to be able to settle at whatever this ending point was.
Yep. Creating a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Well said. I like that. I think I did.
Yeah.
You should have put compromise as a non-negotiable part of a relationship. Yeah. Non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. It is. It's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
You can't build, trust with someone, accountability, love. You can't build any of that with a person that does not compromise with you. Like
that's true.
That's the thing, especially from a relationship standpoint. But from a life standpoint, you compromising so much with yourself, it can lead to a lot of self-doubt, like a lot of mistrust of self. If you compromise so much of, some of the things that you like to do as an individual. Sometimes you gotta look at it and say, okay, this is worth it. This is not worth it. But again, you gotta look at the facts of your individual reality too. That's what I think too, because your individuality has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on online, or what's going on in your family structure, or what's going on in your job sometimes. Like you gotta look at yourself and see what you're gonna be okay with. That's what I think. I think that's kind of why it's so hard for some to actually compromise on certain things. It's the big picture. Like, what are you actually looking at in order to make this decision? So, when it comes to like I guess what you call cons of not compromising well, like, what are some of the things that could happen if you're not one of those those people that can compromise well? Like, what do you think that some of the things that can possibly occur?
You can end up in, not so good situations, bad arguments, because you don't even know how to, come up with it's really a resolution amongst not just yourself, but the person that you're compromising with, and it can, and it's an issue if it's always you that does not know how to compromise. That's an issue.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see that. Nrgy, what you got? You contemplating, what you got?
Yeah, because there's a key word whenever you ask that question. You said compromise well.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping that term in mind, then see, I'm trying not to go back to your last question, because you also use the term well, compromising well. I believe that, are we talking pros or cons right now? I'm sorry.
Cons.
Okay, so not compromising well can lead to selfishness, self-centeredness. When we're talking about the individual person, that can lead to not reaching, like you were talking about earlier, not reaching a goal that you have set for yourself, whether it be, for an example, budgeting. If you don't know how to compromise well when it comes to your finances, holding off from purchasing, this next thing that's trendy, and you're trying to save for a house, or you're trying to, pay off debt or whatever, then yeah, that can be a con. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to make them make sense for right now.
Okay. Got it. So, compromise, especially from a con standpoint, if you can't compromise well, does that necessarily mean that you should, be seeking a relationship, or not be seeking a relationship if you can't compromise well?
If you can't compromise well, then I believe that you should not seek a relationship, because a relationship is all about the other, team, mutual agreements, camaraderie, so if you cannot compromise well, then your relationship will be affected eventually, because your partner is going to get tired of always being the one to compromise, since you're not the one to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it depends. You can go into a relationship not being able to compromise well,
and learn.
And learn. So if you truly care for your partner, and you acknowledge, or you start to see that everything your partner wants they never get, and they are voicing that, it could open your eyes to the fact that you may need to revisit the way that you handle some of you guys' disagreements or decision making. You can learn really quickly, especially if you truly love that person or care for that person. You can really learn quickly once you see that, oh, well, this person is really never getting, anything that they want, or whatever that may look like. So I think you can go into a relationship not knowing how to compromise at all if it's truly ignorance of the skill set. I think if it's just something where you just don't care to do so really well, maybe not so much, because it won't last long once that other partner tends to get fed up of not ever getting their side of the deal.
But see, that's where the word well, is to me, it has to be really paid close attention to, because not compromising well versus not knowing how to compromise, aka being ignorant to knowing how to compromise, those are two different things to me.
Not compromising well. So yeah, well, that's a very crafty term you've added in there, Josh. You know, great job, man. You always do good with it.
Word flipper. A good word flip right there, guys.
Even if you can't compromise well, I feel like you can still learn, you know, because you might not be able to compromise well because you never truly learned the skill. It could still be linked to ignorance. And it depends on why you can't compromise well, right? Is it something that you just intentionally don't care to do so? Or is it a case where you just never really was put in a position where you were able to learn how to do it well? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Nrgy where it does matter why that not well is. Like, is it not well because of intentional not well, or is it not well unintentional?
And that's what I was saying earlier, you know, when I was answering the question, and I said, you know, some people just don't know how to, because that is very true. You have some people who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and they never had to compromise, ever. They don't know what the word no means. They don't know what the word no feels like. They don't know what it means to not get what they want, when they want, how they want it. And then there are some people who have had a different type of lifestyle where it's not about compromising at all, because it's all about survival. Like, no, I've got to get every little piece of every little thing that that I can get my hands on, because of, you know, so coming from like a place of scarcity or lack. So it really does depend. No, some people just truly don't know how to. And that's why when I'm answering the question that Josh is asking, you know, is it someone compromising well versus just not compromising at all? Because it is a learned behavior. You know, some of us learn it as kids. Some of us have to learn it later in life as adults. And I
was gonna go with like option 3, because there's some that, you know, don't know what compromise, the meaning of it, like what it actually means. Because again, to go back to what I said a couple minutes ago, compromise and negotiation. Like, if you don't know which one is which, sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out how to do it. Like how that actually supposed to look in a relationship standpoint. Because you have to consider, whenever individuals get into a relationship, nobody gets into their relationship and say, hey, I'm going to be the person that's going to compromise well. Like, I'm going to be that person that's going to be doing, like, nobody thinks about that stuff. Like, nobody don't think about that, because from the relationship standpoint, and especially if you care for a person, you're going to try to do, depending on the person and how they feel about the person, you're going to want to see the person happy, which means that you might be that person to lean more towards allowing that person to do certain things or give in a little bit more because you care about that person or whatever that looks like. Some people do that. So that has less to do with the word compromise or compromising and more to do with just trying to make a person happy or trying to make the relationship move forward. Like that's the thing. Because most people don't consider that word compromise. Like, to me, I don't think most people consider that word compromise at all. Like, not a lot. Until you have to actually do it, and then you're negotiating instead of compromising. That's just my thought.
So I agree with you where I don't think it's a term that people are actively, going into a relationship saying, oh, let me make sure I am a good compromiser. Let me make sure that when I compromise well. I think that as people get older, as people mature over time, it becomes natural for a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people, to where it's just an automatic thing. Like, okay, I see that my partner, really prefers to do this outdoor activity. I'm not really into outdoors, but you know what? Me participating in this hobby of theirs is going to put a smile on their face. So they're not saying it in their mind, but I'll do this to make my partner happy, AKA I will compromise to make my partner happy. And then if their partner in turn automatically does the same thing for the other person, okay, well, if I prefer to stay home and you know, do DVD night at home or movie night at home, then my partner, who's more of an active person, they're going to want to make me happy as well. So to me, I just think it's an automatic thing as you get older, as you've gone through a few relationships. And yeah, I agree. I don't think anyone is going into a relationship saying, okay, I need to make sure that I compromise well. It just becomes that, you know, that natural seesaw effect, or that natural give and take effect, because you know, typically most people learn over time that, yeah, it tends to work out better if I'm not always trying to be the one that only gets my way and my partner doesn't get theirs either. It's kind of like the whole love language thing, learning what's your partner's love language versus yours. Your partner may love to receive gifts. You may be someone who wants to hear words of affirmation. And so if both of you are just naturally, you know, serving the other person, then it's going to make the relationship work. But I don't think that people are saying, okay, let me make sure how am I going to compromise today to make my relationship work? Yeah.
Okay. I got that. It is. So I was going to add to what you were saying, because you lost me on that last part, okay? That last part, because that seesaw effect that you were talking about, that stops being compromised.
No,
like,
balance. Seesaw, balance.
I know, but that's not compromise, though. Like you said, give and take in what you're saying. Like you said, give and take, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Compromise is a way for both parties to get something from one specific topic. So there's not a seesaw effect. There's both parties finding some level of happiness from one topic. So that means that movie night thing that you said, that means that one person picks the movie, the other person brings the snacks or something like that. Mm-hmm. But both parties are happy with that particular experience. Mm-hmm. So if one party is an outdoorsy person, that means that both parties are going to do the outdoorsy thing, but they find something in that outdoorsy activity that works for both, not just works for one.
Right. I mean, yeah. but part of it can be, okay, but at least we're spending time together. Even if I'm not an outdoorsy person, I want that time with my partner. Or if I'm not into movie night at home, at least we have time. So there's going to be a benefit, period. Like,
there's
going to be a benefit for both people.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that part was like clear, because it's not a give and take like that, more than a certain level of reciprocation. Like it has to feel like both parties are in it together. Like it shouldn't be like a sacrifice here, a sacrifice there, something like that, because it's going to turn into, oh, you always get your way, now it's my turn to get my way situation or something like that. Because that's kind of what it turns into over time. Like over time, it can turn into that. So it has to look like something particular, like a type of structure. Like it has to look like something.
Yeah. But to me,
go for it. What you got? What you got?
Who were you calling on? I didn't hear.
You.
Okay. No, so I was saying, even with that, I mean, because here's the thing. If you're talking about people in a relationship, they're two totally individual people who, were doing their thing. They had their preferences. They had their way of lifestyle before coming together. Once you come together with someone, you have to start kind of like molding and meshing, what you used to do that's familiar to you with what your partner used to do as a single person that's not so familiar to you. And to me, the compromise comes in with to compromise, yes, it is creating a win-win situation. And that win-win situation, it can be more obvious to one person and maybe not as obvious to the next person, but yet it's still a win-win situation. So just kind of using the outdoors example for an example, if someone is really more into the active lifestyle and, this particular day they're going out and their partner is coming along with them, their partner, as long as they're spending time together, then they're winning as well. And then the other partner who's really active and who really wants to, do this particular activity, they're winning in that aspect as well. So to me, it's still creating a win-win situation. I don't see it where it's a sacrifice in at least that example. Of course, there are some situations where it is just a straight up sacrifice, and that I don't agree with. That's why the word compromising well, or having healthy compromises is really the key to the conversation. But if one person may have the more obvious win, it doesn't mean that the other person is not winning at all. It just may not be as obvious. That's just my opinion.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense to you, Emmanuel? Huh? Makes sense? Yep.
No, they quiet. I can read them.
The key really is, the key has to be balanced. It has to be balanced, and in every way. The compromise has to be balanced. The consistency of the compromises have to be balanced, because, as you mentioned, over time, I still think what Nrgy described are valid compromises. However, if they continually sway in the direction of one partner opposed to the other, it will become that situation you described, where a person feels like they're not being fulfilled. So that's why I think it has to be balanced in the consistency of where we're compromising, whether it's for this person this time, this person that time, because it's not a situation where I think that both people are equally happy. I don't think that happens. I think there's going to be someone who's happier. There's going to be someone who might not be as happy, though they are still happy, right? There's levels of happiness, in my opinion. So whoever's the less happier knows that they're the less happier, right? But they're still happy. They're still happy, but they are less happier. Okay. So from that standpoint, I think that, it has to be like as she said, seesaw, and it sounds bad, but there is, and that goes back to where I said there's a more happier and there's a less happier. And that's the seesaw. And it has to be a case where that switches to a degree. And maybe it doesn't have to be like that kind of seesaw. It could be like that kind of seesaw, but there's gonna be a slight shift. There's not gonna be the exact same level of happiness in compromise in a relationship. I just don't think so. And that's kind of my take on it. I agree with both of y'all. But I do believe that it requires balance in the compromise, and it involves balance in the consistencies of the compromise when it comes to who's that slightly happier and who's that, a little more happier, case by case.
Okay. Aphrodite, what you got?
I agree. Y'all said it all. I'll put it out there. I mean, it's nothing more to be said. It's the truth. I agree. I agree with you. I agree with Nrgy. I agree with this.
Oh my God.
I understood Nrgy when she was like that seesaw thing. I was like, yeah, because they might be, and then Emmanuel like they gonna be a little bit more happy than the other person, but I can understand that. Like I can understand it. I can relate.
Yeah. It's not an exact science. It's not. It's not. I don't think it is, personally.
I can relate. I agree. Like, I can relate to that.
Josh, why are you looking like you're just in disbelief?
I don't agree.
Josh don't agree with that.
There's no way that
relate.
I mean, no.
But that's to say that you believe two people are exactly the same level of happiness.
No, I don't. I don't believe that two people, because everybody is made differently. Everybody has different mind states. Everybody have a different opinion about how things should be done. But I do believe that two parties should be open to mutually working together for one cause, right? Or one topic. So that means that from any relationship standpoint, no matter what that group topic is, both parties should have a certain level of happiness in that one topic. And I'm guessing that's kind of what everybody's saying in their way, right? Like saying in their own way.
We're saying that, but we're not.
It's that seesaw thing is really bugging me, right? Like it's like it's bothering me. Like it was bothering me just a little bit.
If it's not a seesaw, then it's equal.
Right. So like,
if it's not a seesaw, it's equal. Can you agree to
you saying that?
No, I'm not saying that it's equal. I'm saying that you should take the seesaw thing and put it in this box over here and put it over here. Don't say anything about no dang seesaw, okay?
So how would you describe it then?
Yes.
Okay, I'm only describing it in one of two ways. You're either compromising or you're negotiating. That's the only thing that I'm saying, okay? Like I'm not talking about the dang seesaw effect. I'm talking about, are you compromising? Because I'm using the appropriate terms here. Like, you can say that it's a seesaw effect all day long, but if you look at those two terms, compromise or negotiation, what does seesaw fall into? Are you compromising or are you negotiating?
I think seesaw can represent both.
Both, yeah, because a negotiation, no one person is getting everything they want, because it's not a negotiation. A negotiation is both people are giving up something in order to win at the end, to where it's a mutual agreement at the end of the day.
So which one of those equations, compromise or negotiation, is going to be mostly used from a relationship standpoint for your relationship to be healthy?
It should be compromise. You negotiate business, okay? Okay. You negotiate business, okay? Not relationships. Okay?
You're so silly. I think like they both have similarities. You know, they both can look the same.
But
they can look the same even though they're different.
Right.
But one is gonna make your relationship grow. One is gonna build your trust. One is gonna build your affection, your love, your bond with your partner. The other one, eventually over time, is gonna make you resent that person and then dislike that person.
Now, this is one thing though. A negotiation is not an ending state though. A compromise is.
Okay, so but a negotiation is one party is gonna win.
A negotiation
entire time.
Not always.
One party wins a little bit more than the other.
Not always. A negotiation is not.
But that's the thing though. Over time, if you look at a standard relationship, most people want their relationship to last, a long time, like years or whatever. So if you constantly negotiating with your partner, you may win one day.
Can a negotiation
you may lose the other day. Think about how long your relationship is. You're gonna eventually get tired of this back and forth negotiation thing. Like you can win one day, next day you not winning. Like that's what a negotiation is.
Can a negotiation end in a compromise?
Can it end? A negotiation has no place to me in a healthy, functioning relationship because, like I said, over time, you want your relationship to grow. You want your relationship to continue to last. But if you feel like you're negotiating with a person and you don't even know if you're going to be on the winning side today, right? Like you don't even know that, you're going to walk away with anything from this subject. What makes you want to work with a person? Like, what makes you want to go back and continue to talk to someone when you know that you got to argue your point every single time just to win, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it don't.
A negotiation is a conversation by two people who are looking for an agreement, though. They're looking for an agreement. One
party is stating their facts in order to win that conversation.
Not always, though. A negotiation is strictly two people looking to come to an agreement.
Okay.
That's it.
What happens in a business standpoint when you're negotiating?
In the negotiation, there could be compromise. Hey, look, we talked about this. You want this. You want this. All right. How about we do this? Compromise.
Okay. My standpoint from that is that you could be negotiating from a business standpoint. It could be like, okay, we negotiating this deal or whatever, this is what I'm gonna get, this is what you gonna get. That means that this party's over here gonna get 70%, you may get 20%. And then it's like, okay, a 30%, and you just walk away from that deal. And that's a negotiation.
That deal may not go through though. That negotiation may not go through.
But
it could be a negotiation.
From a relationship standpoint, it don't make sense.
A negotiation though is the root of that term is two people looking for a agreement. They're looking to they're trying to work together.
Yes.
It's different from a discussion or argument or a
whereas no one's trying to talk about nothing. They don't want to hear nothing the other person has to say. Like it's just their way or the highway.
Right. A negotiation is aimed towards meeting both parties' needs. Right. It's not a end goal. It's a stepping stone to the end goal.
Yeah, even if the win isn't 50-50, it could be 70-30, but if both people or both sides are happy, then it's a success. It doesn't always have to be an ending of, okay, well, we're equally in the sense of percentages, but if both people are just like, well, I'm good with what I got, even if that's just 30%, and the other person's like, well, I'm good with what I have, even if that's 70%. The reason I'm having a really tough time with agreeing is because me being a mediator, negotiation is not always going to be 50-50. And it may seem like, let's just say if we're dealing with spouses that are going through a divorce, one spouse may get 70% of one area and 30% of another, but in another area, there is, the tables have turned. So they're both happy with the results of the negotiation, AKA, or the compromise, in order to come to a mutually agreed end result. That's what mediation is all about. And the mediation is it's like a hybrid or a mixture of compromising versus negotiation. At the end of the day, it's two parties that are coming with a dialogue, or they're discussing something in order to have a mutual agreement at the end of the dialogue. To me, what would make sense based off of what you're describing, Josh, is compromise versus sacrifice, or negotiation versus sacrifice. The sacrifice to me is where one person is like losing and the other person, just got everything that they wanted. That's a sacrifice. You're literally laying your life on the line for, you're sacrificing. Think of the term sacrifice when it comes to life. And that's, I think it would be better to say compromise versus sacrifice instead of compromise versus negotiate.
I mean, we can name it tomato. We can call it. we can call it whatever you want to call it.
That's true though.
But I'm just saying, like,
sacrifice versus compromise is. I think that's what we need to be hitting on.
Yeah.
Because whatever makes you sleep good at night, okay? That's all I can say.
Okay, so
that's all I can say.
Let's pull up the definition of negotiate, pull up the definition of compromise, and let's see where they differ, if they differ at all. Because they're the same. They're very similar. I ain't gonna say the same. They're very similar. So I can pull it up, right? If you want me to, I can read it. You can read it. You read it.
You can pull it up, but I'm saying if we're talking about strictly from a relationship standpoint, you need to see the effects of both of those and how it leaves room for your relationship to grow. Because both of those terms don't leave room for your relationship to continue to grow over time. Like it doesn't. Like they don't have the same relational effect on you, on your position that you are in your relationship. It doesn't. Like those two things don't operate the same from a relationship standpoint. Like they don't. Like we can pull up the definition and stuff like that, and you can read them. But when you put those particular terms and practicality in people's relationships, it doesn't match up. Like it don't. It never matches up. Because that term and the way that individuals use it from a relationship standpoint is completely different. Like it is. Like in my experience, I've never seen those two things work in conjunction in a relationship, and the relationship still functions the same way. That's what I'm saying.
That's why it's hard for me to agree, because with me on my side and the experience that I have seen it be successful. Because if we're talking compromise / negotiation, it's still both parties not necessarily getting everything that each person wants, but yet they did receive enough to resolve, whatever that thing was, that issue was, or whatever. And they're both satisfied to where they can now move forward. Versus in my experience where one person is constantly sacrificing, constantly bending over backwards, constantly giving, and never being on the receiving end, then that's where I've seen where it's just not successful. But that's where it's a sacrifice. But I get what you're saying. It may just have to be an agreement of disagreeing when it comes to the terminology aspect.
So I think that's a good point for us to leave it at, okay? Because I know, we're gonna have a different type of perspectives here, okay? But that's part of what this platform is about, is perspective. So definitely, we offered some great perspectives. Hopefully, the listening viewers get some good stuff from this. So another episode of Adding Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
I'm Coach Nrgy, and I would love for the listeners to put their thoughts below. Compromise versus negotiation versus... These are my thoughts. I'm Coach Nrgy, and I'm done.
Oh, God.
I'm Aphrodite. I'm just going to let Coach Nrgy have all of that.
Okay.
Now, Emmanuel, it was great being with you guys tonight.
Awesome.